I woke up as they're stitching up my intestines. So I almost ruined my life. I almost lost my intestines. I lost a piece, but I almost got put in a permanent bag if I didn't save my gut. After all those pharmaceuticals, I was in the most pain possible with the gut. It completely destroyed my gut. To the point, they rushed me into the ER and I had to get recut open. And since it was emergency, they just want to do like mainly superficial, no anesthesia. I was completely awake. I witnessed everything. I felt everything. I'm like, oh my God, I can only eat meat. And then I looked into the carnivore.
Hello, everyone. Adam with Carnivore Today. Today we have a very special guest, Christopher Brandlin, also known as the Carnivore Lawyer. So, Christopher, for those that don't know you, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. I came from the health and fitness industry as a former personal trainer during college and law school. I actually competed in all natural bodybuilding. I did sprint triathlons during law school, which actually helped build my business. And after passing the bar exam, I still stuck with the fitness industry. Just still did some like local sprint triathlons. I wasn't doing so much of the all natural bodybuilding. I was mostly kind of keto during college and law school when I was competing, but it wasn't completely carnivore. And then I ended up, developing some symptoms probably 2016, 2017, when I was, having some odd autoimmune issues. It wasn't just gut problems; it was widespread. As you know, autoimmune's a big umbrella. So I did the mistake by listening to a lot of conventional doctors, and they put me on probably every pharmaceutical you can imagine. Mainly, it was the gut, and that's why they gave me a bunch of antibiotics, laxatives, and corticosteroids. And it just, I was having gut problems, but not having gut pain. After all those pharmaceuticals, I was in the most pain possible with the gut. It completely destroyed my gut. To the point in April of 2017, I had a surgeon just make the recommendation because one piece of my intestine was getting very inflamed. He said, if we just remove this piece of your intestine, you're going to be a lot better. And I was so gullible and kind of desperate at the time. I listened to him. It was the worst decision possible because not only that, I had so many complications afterwards. Even after the surgery, they woke me up from anesthesia too early. So I woke up as they're stitching up my intestines. So very
Oh my
painful.
gosh.
Yeah. So I woke up extremely in pain, and then they had to give me a bunch of tramadol and morphine to put me back to sleep for like 5 or 6 hours. And I was in the hospital. They released me prematurely. I was still having pain. I was having complications the next couple of weeks, and then I developed a huge grapefruit size infection, and a piece of my intestine like 2 inches below my belly button, and like right below the belt line, and that's where the main laparoscopic is because they removed about 6 inches, and they said, "Oh, you'll be back to normal." I said, "Hey, I don't want to wear a bag." Uh, but after that, I developed this infection, and they rushed me into the ER, and I had to get recut open. And since it was emergency, they just want to do like mainly superficial, no anesthesia. I was completely awake. I witnessed everything. I felt everything. Very
Oh my
painful.
goodness.
And then they said, don't stitch it up because the infection came from the inside. So if you have a really bad wound, sometimes they don't want you to stitch it up. They want to breathe it out, but it kind of sucks because it's your abdomen. So I had to change the gauze 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening for like a couple of weeks. The infection came back. They had to recut me open and drain out all the abscess and fluid and infection. And then they had to do the same thing, change the gauze, and then finally I got to a point where I was already doing kind of like seeing like what foods and anything, like I couldn't even have lemon juice or anything, like it was so sensitive that like anything would just set it off. So I actually ended up doing like later on, I was having complications for the next couple of months. I did like an extended water fast, and I did like 10 days because I've done prior fast when I was having some problems after these pharmaceuticals, but not like an extended fast. And usually, all these fasting clinics, usually around the U.S., actually are like vegan based, and that's a problem because if you're trying to
Right.
fast and heal, you want to kind of heal as you're refeeding, and when you're putting a bunch of insoluble fiber, plant toxins right after you've been fasting for a week or even just a couple days, it's completely just wrecking your intestines. It's like putting sandpaper on your intestines. So this time, I actually just refed on just meat. Because I was studying bone broth. I would just do so I didn't go straight into bone broth, which a lot of people do after a fast. I just wanted to slow cooked fatty meat meal, and it was so soothing. So I knew that there was something to it, and I kept I reached out to some colleagues. I started doing elimination diets. I was like, all right, I can't really have any carbohydrates. I have any honey, rice, potatoes. I can't have anything. No fruit, especially fruit. Fruit makes me the worst. And so I was learning that I was having more problems with plants versus any kind of meats. I can only eat meat. Only then I looked into the carnivore community because some of my colleagues, because I was in the fitness industry most of my life,
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, you may want to look into, like, they have that carnivore. It's like the whole meat-based diet. That's all they eat. And I originally spoke with Michaela Peterson in like mid to end of 2018. This was before she got big and famous. And she actually just called me personally on her cell phone and just like for the consult, because she was kind of like, I just saw her on social media. I just kind of found her contact. And she's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she just kind of gave me the basics. Like, hey, but even like when you're cooking, you can't cook in coconut oil or any kind of other oils or, avocado oil. You got to cook in just fat, like just beef fat, basically. You're using tallow for everything. Don't even risk it with lard because not everybody tolerates lard. Just do tallow. No coconut oil because when I was keto, I was big on coconut oil, but the coconut oil was causing problems. So I was feeling improvement, and I wanted to like keep kind of picking everybody's brain. So that's when I consulted with Dr. Baker, and this is what like another like a Skype consult before he became more popular, but he was already becoming semi-popular at the time. And he gave me some general recommendations, whether, how much fat and protein you can do and all that, and whether organs are necessary. And then I kind of told, I was like, I asked him about this. I was like, hey, someone has said like to stay with this paleo medicina clinic out in Budapest, Hungary, run by Dr. Sophia Clemens. He said, you know what? It's definitely worth a try. So I consulted with them, flew over to Budapest, and after the surgery, I was still taking like supplements, gluten powder, like vitamin C, vitamin D, and all this, and just trying to keep my immune system like from falling apart again. And
Sure.
when I met with her, she made the recommendation. I flew all the way to Budapest, Hungary, on Thanksgiving in 2018. I left like I didn't.
Hey there, quick message. Doing carnivore alone can feel isolating. That's why we built Healing Humanity Life. It's the Good Vibe Tribe. Real support, expert Q&As, and unlimited access to courses like our Carnivore Diet Foundations course. No more figuring it out solo. Links in the description.
Didn't hang out with family or anything. And I said, I just left her. I was like, I need to get better. I don't care if I'm gonna fly halfway across the world. I need to get better. So I stayed with them for like a little bit more than a week, almost 2 weeks. But when I met with them, they're like, hey, no supplements. I told her I had some kind of like supplements and all that. They're like, no, nothing. No enzymes, nothing. You need just meat, fat, and water and salt. That's it. And I was like, oh my God, I was kind of like worried. I was like, you know what? Sometimes I have to take some like, the doctors gave me some prokinetics or laxatives in case like the gut can kind of get stuck because there's a stricture at the intestine. She said, no, you don't even take that. You're going to have plenty of fat. You're not going to have any problems. And it was true because I never really did a really fat diet. And I'm not sure if you know, Adam, but keto is 70%, fat, 30% protein. Paleo medicina, the PKD diet, which they kind of trademarked as the Paleolithic ketogenic diet. So everybody knows that the PKD, if you're speaking with the carnivore community, it's the most fat. It's 80% fat. It's almost all fat. And I was using that, and not only that, everything was kind of flowing through. Even though if you eat too much rendered fat at once, it goes right through you too quickly. But I was like,
Sure.
oh my God, this is feeling good. I felt amazing for the 1 or 2 weeks. So when I came back to the U.S., I was like, I got to promote this. I got to get people off pharmaceuticals. Like, don't take pharmaceuticals. I almost ruined my life. I almost lost my intestines. I lost a piece, but I almost got put in a permanent bag if I didn't save my gut. And I was so focused on saving the gut. But I started looking into alternative medicine, functional medicine. I learned about, I really praise medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I think when I looked at your brief bio, I think you had some traumatic brain injuries, and I know that hyperbaric oxygen therapy is also suitable for that. But another good thing about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it can regenerate tissue so much faster than normal. And not only does it oxygenate the body in general, which we're all depleted in oxygen, but it can really stimulate the healing. So I always tell people if they use a medical grade hyperbaric oxygen chamber, you can heal 10 times faster than normal. That's why a lot of extreme athletes and cancer patients use medical grade hyperbaric oxygen. That actually
Sure.
started helping heal everything too, because I was developing these, when I was very inflamed after the surgeries, I was developing these ulcerations on my body. I developed a skin disease after the surgery because when your body is in a very inflamed state, you can get some subsequent conditions and diseases. I developed pyoderma gangrenosum, which is like 1 out of like a couple 100 million people get, so lucky me. It's where you develop ulcerations on your body. And just think of it, pyoderma, derma skin, gangrenosum, gangrene. Your skin starts eating itself up. So you'll develop a bruise and an ulcer, and then like it was only on my limbs for some reason, like if I bumped into something. But like I just remember I had an ulceration on my hip where I can touch my hip bone. It was that bad. So I was so inflamed, but I
Wow.
had to heal. So the meat was definitely healing the gut and come everything else, but I want to heal the entire body as much as possible. So I doing the medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I started doing some ozone therapy, which is another oxidant. And I looked into stem cells, exosomes, peptide therapy. What else? Even doing a red light therapy. And then I started doing different types of fasting instead of just doing the intermittent fasting, but also like occasionally tried dry fasting. It was amazing. And then I got so into like meat, I learned that I was digesting certain meats better when I was eating completely raw. So I had to find the best source meats. I always say, there's a lot of people that can do the raw, but if I can find a really good source meat, I digest it the best when it's raw. Like a raw filet mignon, it's the most soothing thing on your gut if you can really try that. Yeah, so I got so into it. So I was already doing my dietetics clinical rotations after passing because I want to stay involved in the health and fitness industry. So I got my dietetics credential as a dietetic technician. It's kind of like a step below like a registered dietitian. I was going to get the full RD going through a master's program, but when I told the master's dietetics programs that they need to flip the food pyramid upside down, they didn't like that. And I was like, you guys are getting sicker. This is after I came back from like Budapest. I was like, I'm gonna get my master's. I'm gonna climb to the top. So I want to get my master's in dietetics. And they said no. Even though you have the best credentials, you're not you're not very suitable for our dietetics program because you're thinking against our guidelines. Because I didn't think the food pyramid was the best thing. I said it needs to be flipped upside down. And not just that, I had the people that are telling me this at USC were like, five. It looks like five. I think I told Dr. Shafee in our podcast. These girls look like the anchors from the View. Basically, they look like pigeons. These overweight women with like like very skinny legs and like pot bellies, like telling me, no, you're not going to looking out for the health of the community. I'm like, this is hard. So I just got my MBA because I want to get more in finance. But then when the lockdown started in 2020. I already kind of had like a sign from God that I need to come back to the health community.
Hmm.
So, but when I noticed that a lot of the executive orders, especially when like the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates, and I was having a lot of friends just getting, almost risk of losing their jobs because they didn't want to get vaccinated. And from my past, I hate pharmaceuticals. I would never trust a vaccine promoted by Bill Gates, who has no health background and no educational background, regardless, besides computer viruses. So, anyways, I was starting to speak out against the vaccine, like outspoken as the only attorney in LA County. Like, hey guys, these vaccines should not be trusted. We should not be the first guinea pigs. You got to have some diligent research. There's got to be some efficacy. And they were kind of shutting me down, and people try to report me to the state bar. I was like, I'm going to take this to a new level. I'm going to get my PhD in public policy because my PhD in public policy is a crossover with public health with our residencies, and it's actually a gateway to run for Congress too. So
Hmm.
most of the people in Congress have a background in law, which I already established. I already have a very extensive background with the health and fitness industry. And I thought if I have the better ability to learn how to manage smaller and larger governments, I want to run for Congress. And I made this statement a couple of years ago. And I'm in my dissertation phase. I turned 40 in June. And I will probably become Dr. Brandlin before I turn 40. And I've already made my announcement on Fox News to run for Congress, and I got the endorsements when I went to D.C. And I'm working with Team Kennedy because my campaign manager is from Team Kennedy, and I'm very honored for that. And they want me to embrace the red wave, and they like the fact that not only do I want to make America great again, I'm one of the few attorneys and diverse individuals. I want to make America great and healthy again. So I think that should be established. So that's why I'm been providing kind of pro bono services for the carnivore community for the past several years is because I want to promote the good word.
Well, that's awesome, Christopher. You said a lot there, and I
Yeah, I tried
definitely want to come back
to
to
put like 12
some of this
pages
stuff.
short in like 5 or 10 minutes. But sorry if I rushed through it. I speak kind of fast, so I can slow
No,
down.
yeah, no worries. We got plenty to discuss.
Cool.
So I want to go back to sort of your health issues that you had back in the past, your digestive issues. So you shared a before photo of you back when you were bodybuilding, and you looked amazing. You looked, like the peak, what would be in peak health, right?
Yeah,
So you're
exactly.
having these digestive issues. So what was your diet like prior to these intestinal issues?
You know, I think when I was competing during bodybuilding for all natural bodybuilding, and even when I won Mr. Los Angeles Natural in 2010, when I got like the muscle and fitness magazines, my diet was actually carb cycling, where you would do keto for 3 to 4 days, and then you would replenish or kind of reload on carbohydrates. And my dietitian, my bodybuilding coach, who focused, he worked with all natural bodybuilders because I told him I never want to take any anabolic steroids. I just have too many friends, like have so many problems. I never even want to touch that stuff. And not just that, their girlfriends would complain to me about because they couldn't get it up. I'm like, I'm never taking that stuff. I was having too much fun. And I think I kind of told this on Dr. Kilt's podcast. Like, even though I was fit in college, I was a fraternity president. So I partied a lot. But in law school, I didn't even drink or smoke or anything. I went completely straight edge. But the diet that was recommended by me was you're still doing high protein and fat, but the fats were not always just meat based. The fats that you're using for the typical bodybuilding diet, if you're using my dietitian, who I'm still friends with today, and he actually became my client. I still help him out. He's actually based in Tennessee, so I may go see him when I go visit you guys the next month. His name is Chuck Rudolph, but what he actually does highly admire the carnivore diet because he's always been keto, but
Hmm.
he really thinks, and he's a big fan of Bobby Kennedy. But he would, when I was training with him, I was always a power lifter during college. I was always kind of a bigger guy, stockier. I'm only at 5'9", but I was like about I think when I was eating to gain weight off season, I was eating 5 to 6,000 calories a day, and I was doing it in
Wow.
7 to 8 meals. So not only was I kind of like I was going to school full time, and I was a personal trainer full time. I was a fitness manager at 24 Hour Fitness. I was eating right when I woke up, like at 5 or 6 in the morning. I was eating every couple hours. You'd be on the Tupperware diet, and then you just do protein shakes or something like that every between. But I just remember, like when I wanted to build a good mass, so I got to like 200 pounds. But when I met with Chuck Rudolph, right when I was starting law school, because I did a competition right before I ended college. I didn't do that well, but I didn't cut fast enough. I didn't prepare long enough. So he's like, no, you need to get a really serious preparation. So what we're going to do is we're going to put, you're going to go from about 200 pounds. I think I was like 190, 200. He's like, you're going to lose about 40 to 45 pounds, but you're going to do it slowly, over the course of like, 6 months or so, 4 or 5, 6 months maybe. But I want you to maintain all your muscle tissues. So you're going to keep your protein high. You're going to take a lot of amino acids. So branched chain amino acids while you're training. But you're going to cycle your carbs. So your main sources of protein are just, he's like, look at you're going to be doing best with animal-based proteins. That's what I do admire him. He's like, just do fish, chicken, steaks. If you're doing the lean, he did like the leaner meats and then adding fats on top of that. He said if you do salmon, you don't really need to add fat. But he's like, but most of his fats were like, avocado, which is not bad because I know a lot of carnivores or ketovores kind of like blend that in.
Right.
He didn't like the inflammatory oils. He's like, I prefer fruit oils like avocado or olive oil, even though it's not as healthy as the as animal-based fats, in my honest opinion. But he's like, you stick with that. Some like nuts and seeds, not too much, especially if you're getting sensitive. And then you're gonna just do a little bit like a fist size full of vegetables. And then every 3 days, you're gonna load up on some safer carbohydrates. And his preference was sweet potatoes. That's like the whole paleo thing, right? If you're adding in like root tubers, sweet potatoes or Japanese Okinawa potatoes. Um, he didn't like the russet potatoes because he sorely believed in the nightshades, but you would do that for like 6 months, and then you would do in high intensity interval training at least once or twice a week, where you go on a treadmill, you go on a full sprint for a minute, walk or jog for a minute, and you do that completely just to really amp up your metabolic rate. But I actually did that most of the time. When I did pass the bar exam in 2011, I probably was drinking a little bit. I started going to like some functions. You would probably eat a little bit of shit. It would be like a once a week thing. But
Right.
my suspicion, and what the kind of confirmed afterwards, is after the gut surgeries, I did some blood testing, and I'm not sure if I got it when I was traveling to the East Coast, but they found me positive for Lyme disease and two co-infections. So that may have provoked the
Wow.
inflammation, but I believe that if I would have stayed away from a lot of dangerous conventional medicine, stuck with your natural health, and maybe just did some fasting or some like straight just zero carb, I probably could have like kept the Lyme or something in remission faster. But I think since I inflamed my body so bad to a huge extent, I think I just kind of
Hmm.
provoked and just kind of fed the Lyme disease when I was getting inflamed. Because when you get like some really bad Lyme disease that they say to keep it in remission, I mean, all your symptoms are going to come back when you're very inflamed or if you just get exposed to a very bad environment. My thing is, my Achilles tendon, because I did get sick a couple years ago, is black mold. Mold, I'm very sensitive to. Even like Michaela Peterson, I'm not sure if you saw follow up with her, but she took like a 6 or 8 month hiatus even when she was doing well because she got sick from mold. So that's my Achilles tendon. But yeah, that was the diet. But after, I think it was kind of like a wake up call. And I did a podcast with this guy Ricky, who's he's an animal based podcaster out of the UK. He
Hmm.
kind of confirmed. He's like, you're doing well, and sometimes with doing keto, but when your body is in very inflamed state, and it's like life or death, it's kind of like a wake up call that you need to go back to the only foods that can truly nourish you, and that's the animal based foods. And that's where I found out, even though I was
That's right.
doing very well during the carnivore, during competitions, and I was in the best shape of my life, and I had a very good social and dating life, during that time, just doing just meat, vegetables, and fats, but it was a lot of plants. When my body got so inflamed to a point, just making some wrong decisions, I don't even trust to eat plants. I don't even though Paul Saladino is trying to, I know he's more of a salesperson now, but I know he's trying to promote all the fruit to honey stuff. I don't even trust that. I think the one time I tried like honey, I even tried like a real raw honey or like Manuka honey, completely
Hmm.
make me feel like shit. So I don't want to risk. I was like, you know what? If I have to, I was like, you know what? I'd rather feel good the rest of my life. And this is another thing that you should acknowledge too, is that when you're in the fitness industry and when you're a trainer and you're in your early 20s, the whole like theme is look better naked, right? But I think most important,
Right.
it's not just look better naked. You got to feel better naked. So, or in essence, just you want to feel good throughout the day. It's not always about how you look, and that's why I kind of question all these other social media influencers when I know they're on so much supplements, and especially all these Hollywood elites, like they're all like on Ozempic, like 24/7 or something like that, and you see like their cheekbones and they have like no ass anymore. I'm like, I always tell females like, you know what, you need some quality meat on your body, but no, that's a huge thing. It's like they're on combinations of like cocaine and I've worked with like the entertainment industry as an attorney, and I just know a lot of their bad habits, and I think their combination that they're taking is like it's just a lot of it's actually speed, cocaine, and Ozempic. There you go. And they'll eat like shit too. They'll go on like a craving, but they'll just like starve themselves and just go a bunch of Ozempic to like kind of decrease their appetite. So it's definitely on
What a
how you
life.
should feel, and you want to feel good throughout the day. That's probably the most important.
So yeah, so you mentioned the diet that you were eating prior to getting sick, and it really seems like you were eating pretty clean.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's
I think what kind of provoked it. I know a lot of people say, "Hey, stress." I mean, attorneys, we have the highest suicide rates, right? So we have the most
right.
stressful. It used to be dentists, though. You know that.
Hmm.
But I think attorneys, when I did like a seminar in 2013 after passing the bar exam, it said like the attorneys are the newest, highest rates of like suicide, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, like everything that could go wrong will go wrong.
Oh
It
wow.
used to be dentists, and I have my friend, and he's actually my client. And I asked him, I was like, because I remember it was the movie like The Whole Nine Yards with was it Bruce Willis and Matt Perry? I'm not sure if you remember that with was the
Hmm.
contract killer, and he introduces Matt Perry like, "Hey, this is my neighbor. He's a dentist," and everyone's like, "Hey, you don't look suicidal." So that was the whole joke because dentists used to be the most suicidal, but attorneys are the most suicidal because we deal with some of the worst problems, and if you're like my line of work, I do like 12 different practice areas. I do collections, so not only do I'm one of the few attorneys that if I get a judgment for a client, I want to make sure they get paid for the judgment too. 90
Hmm.
to 95% of people that get judgments never get paid. So a lot of people don't even realize that. But no, I do. I
Wow.
garnish. I have a really good private investigator. I can find anybody's statewide or nationwide bank accounts. I can garnish them. I can garnish their wages. I can find them. I can find anybody I want. And I'm one of the few attorneys, since I'm also a real estate broker and I do real estate law. I know how to do an application for a judicial foreclosure. If I can say, hey, I got a judgment against this guy for $500,000. He owns a property worth about $1 million, and he's going to lean on it, but there's still equity to pay off my judgment. So I'm asking the court to sell this on the court's doorsteps and pay me the judgment. And you can put people to sleep, but that's why I get my occasional death threats. But I got used to it. And if I'm
So there's a lot of
running for Congress, I think I'm going to get probably a little bit more. So it's all right. I don't until
right.
I get into Congress, I'm not going to have any Secret Service for me. So it's all right. I'm lucky that I still exercise every week, and I still have a mixed martial arts background. I used to be a wrestler most of my life. That's why I kind of stay with the fitness. I was a very competitive wrestler during high school, and I did a little bit of mixed martial arts during college too.
Nice, nice. So how do you actually handle the stress?
Good thing about me is I think a lot of people, one of the bad things about handling the stress is I know a lot of them become food addicts. And I just noticed a lot of my female attorneys that I know that when they get very stressed, they like have like a very bad sweet tooth, and like, I think it drives them mentally insane more. When you kind of observe it, like you can see them binging and like eating like like constant like chips and like sweets, and like when they're really stressed out. I think it really kind of part of my friends. I think it's really them up not only just mentally but physically too. So I
Right.
think I like the fact that I don't have a sweet tooth. I never really liked too much sugar. Even when I was in my partying days, like if I got, as a fraternity president, if we drank, I was like, no, I just want to, I think we went to like a meal. I was like, I just want a really big, like steak right now. It's like something I always kind of admire. I'll have carbs with it too. I was like, dude, I just need like a big like steak burrito or something like that. So I never really had much of a sweet tooth though. I think that's one of the reasons, but also, I don't know. I just think you kind of balance your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, and I had to go through kind of training for that too. Is because I'm adrenaline junkie, so I just went skydiving the first weekend of this year, and I went bungee jumping. I used to go. I think I did like 9 skydiving jumps so far, but I do non-tandem, no one attached to you. I had to do additional training, and you have to pass a wind tunnel test where you can kind of float your body on midair and have a perfect arc in your back, and to make sure you don't spin out of control. I do that regularly, but yeah, you have to find a balance. I try to find. I actually what I like about the medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I think the peer reviewed research actually proves that it can actually calm down your sympathetic nervous system too. So it's something that can be calming too, and it's something I kind of need to take a nice little nap on that too. I get most of my recovery there, and I don't really watch too much TV at night. When I get home, I only like to turn on music, and the only time that I usually watch TV is for a very offensive comedy that makes. So I'm a huge proponent of offensive humor. So I like South Park and Family Guy. I like the ones that push on, and that's why like LinkedIn banned me like 6 or 7 times. And even my campaign managers like, you gotta like watch your language, and you gotta watch some of your offensive comments. I know it's funny, but a lot of people are gonna get offended. I'm like, well, people are offended by anything nowadays. But yeah, I usually watch like South Park and Family Guy like throughout the week, and then I like Dave Chappelle, Ricky Gervais. I think you can actually, the research proves humor promotes longevity. So I think that's a very good way to manage your stress. And I like offensive humor.
Yep.
I mean, you got people still driving around with their mask on in their own cars by themselves. I mean, you can make so many jokes about that. So the sheep and all that. So
Right. I love
yeah.
it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dave Chappelle also. He lives literally just 10 minutes from
No
me.
kidding.
So
Oh, cool.
yeah, it's really cool. I've been to his the firehouse.
Sweet.
It hasn't opened publicly, but he's had some private showings, and I've been to one of those, and it was
So
awesome.
that I actually got through college and part of law school. I would look forward to watching the Chappelle show, where he would do all these skits, like different kind of like like characters. I think that was the funniest, and like I'm Rick James bitch and all this other stuff. And, like,
Right.
I think a lot of us really need to embrace offensive humor, because you know what and the reason why I like Chappelle, South Park, and Family Guy is they don't like just target like specific races or ethnicities or like sexes or stuff like that. Like they make fun of everybody. I think that's how it should be. It should be fair game. I
Absolutely. And they think outside the box,
yeah,
just like
exactly.
carnivores do.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why. Even though a lot of people are like, hey, you hate doctors. Like, no, I don't hate all doctors. I hate conventional doctors that just prescribe people medication without even asking about their lifestyle and diet. I think then you have a drug dealer. You don't have a doctor in that kind of situation. But I have the most respect for a lot of the doctors who went through the curriculum, went through all the training, even though they're getting taught a bunch of it from all these medical institutions, they're getting most of their funding from big pharma, because even though they're taught on pharmacology during college, and this is something I discussed with Dr. Kiltz this last Sunday, is that, you know what, they realize that a lot of things they're taught are not teaching them everything, and they were never taught anything about, you know, health and nutrition. I think when I spoke with
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, I'm going to speak with Andy Chafee in a couple weeks too, because he's my client. He wants to promote my campaign, so I'm going to speak with him. And I think in 2 weeks we'll have another podcast. But you know, one things that I learned, and it's actually, you can find this out. This is public records, but the average amount of time that doctors spend on nutrition and all their medical schools and residencies, and you can see like how many hours, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that they spend, even like during the residency, a couple years residency, like depending on like what type of practice you're doing. You know, they spend, like, I think at the most prestigious institutions, probably like a dozen or not even 2 dozen like hours on nutrition. So, and that's why when you go to a doctor, they don't know two shits about nutrition. It's so
Right.
unfortunate, you know. And just it just instead of like giving like some dietary advice on dietetics, they're like, no, we're gonna put you on metformin, and we're gonna basically, you'll be monitoring your insulin levels, and they'll just, and yeah, it's all it's all pharmaceuticals. Any treatment or any condition, they'll think of a pharmaceutical that treat that instead of a natural, like a way of modifying your diet or lifestyle. I mean, if you're indoors like this is why I force myself to get outdoors on the weekends, and I go out. I have property on the desert, and I go and I drive. This is kind of getting problematic. I drive back and forth to Las Vegas every week, but I'm getting better at it. But I force myself to get outside. So, and that's why I kind of like red light therapy. If I can't really kind of get the full sunlight and vitamin D, is I try to get much light as I can. And I actually really like red light therapy lately too. I spoke with some of these kind of head kind of distributors over at the at DC at inauguration, because I went to Bobby Kennedy's inaugural ball. So I'm not sure if you know, but Trump and Bobby Kennedy, I call him Bobby Kennedy, everybody calls him RFK, but Bobby Kennedy, they had two separate balls. I think Trump was at the Starlight or something like that. And I went to the
Mm-hmm.
Maha ball, the Make America Healthy Again inaugural ball. And I met so many different like CEOs from big functional medicine companies, and I got really like intrigued by one of them was Siggy Clavian. I just did like a liver scan with him a couple weeks ago, and to show like I was surprising because his hypothesis, like, you know, some carnivores, they may have some fatty liver, because non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, it's very common right now. Even if your blood test doesn't show that you have bad functioning liver, like, you know, because they'll show like ALT and AST on your blood panels to see like how your liver function is. You know, if you want to see how
Mm-hmm.
if it's fatty, you got to do a very detailed fibro scan. It's usually very expensive, but he offered me as a courtesy, because I had a good time with him at in DC. He's like, hey, come back. I got an office in Irvine. We'll do a fibro scan. And I told him, I was like, hey, this is my one advice. I'll admit this publicly, is every couple weeks I will celebrate with a couple shots of Patron tequila. That's I can't have any other alcohol, but I don't eat any sugar or plants, but that's my vice, because it is poison. So my poison is
Right.
alcohol, but it's usually on these functions, because I've been celebrating these new functions, all that. But I was like, yeah, you know, I just had alcohol a couple weeks ago, but let's see. He's like, hey, you got like one of the cleanest livers I've ever seen. And he's like, I was always thinking that carnivores had a fatty liver. I'm like, well, here's your proof right there. Let's publish this shit. So I actually I put it
Right.
on LinkedIn too. I was like, hey, you know, everybody's telling me I probably have a screwed up liver because I'm a carnivore. Look at, and he called it the blue zone liver, because, you know, the blue zone diet, like the blue zone's like
Oh
the
wow.
healthiest diets and like most
Right.
best longevity. I was like, hey, I got a blue zone liver, and this is after I was a fraternity president, because when I was a fraternity president, I'd probably drink 1 or 2 bottles of whiskey a week. That was a lot.
Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
Sorry. I'd still wake up.
That's
I'd
quite a
still
bit.
wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning. I would take a very freezing cold shower and just pound some coffee, and I would still go to class every day. I played hard, but I worked hard though. So
Wow. Yeah. So you mentioned that you went to the Maha
it was
Ball.
awesome. That was,
Can you
yeah.
talk? Can you talk a little bit about, obviously you're running for
Yes.
Congress in Nevada, correct? Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah. So I've owned and managed properties in Las Vegas for like 6 or 7 years. and I kind of did some business ventures over there. So I've been and it's kind of like, it was actually my getaway too, to Vegas, is like, especially right when the lockdown started, because I'm not sure if you know, California, where I was born and raised, and where I primarily practice, it's um, it got the most restrictive during the lockdown. So during the lockdown, like a lot of stores are closed or they had curfews, and you had to go to mask for anything just to go to like a local, like if you go to like a local pharmacy, if you're out of something, if you want to get like a local something at like a grocery store, then you had to wear a mask. And then they almost like had like some companies were saying you have to be vaccinated to like enter, like have proof of vaccination just to enter the store. I'm like, this is so ridiculous.
Wow.
This is like later on. So like 2020 and 2021, I was spending most of my time in, if I didn't have any in-person meetings, and a lot of the times they were converting a lot of these hearings, these motion hearings, these status hearings that you do for the court, they're having remotely. So I was like, I'm just going to be staying in Nevada most of the time. So I was staying as my Nevada as my getaway because it was a lot more open. But they uh, the main recommendation is for Nevada is because California, it's very suspicious for voting fraud, especially if you saw the recent election. For example,
Hmm.
I tried to show my ID to go vote in close to my office in Torrance, and there's like 10 people working the polling place. I thought they're going to pull a gun on me because I showed my ID, because they said, "Hey, put that away." I'm like, I'm just showing my ID to show I'm Christopher
Well,
Brown. I'm here to vote. I'm here to vote for Trump. And they're like, I said that out loud. But anyways, they're like, no, we're not allowed to see your ID. I'm like, what the is going on? And so I just,
wow.
it
That's
was
wild.
such a like the worst anomaly that I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. And I spoke with some of my friends in Nevada, like, yeah, we show IDs. We have to show IDs over here. I mean, there's some counties that are kind of like disputed, but yeah, it's very suspicious. Not just that, California just I'm not gonna say it's futile because it's becoming more red, but it is a blue state, and I think that
Mm.
I have a lot more close colleagues that I would respect more over there, and I enjoy myself more over there. And I have friends with the local Air Force base over there, Nellis Air Force Base, and most of the friends I used to train with when I was in wrestling, they're now head commanding pilots over the Air Force. I got more affiliated with the Republican Cubs over there in the Chamber of Commerce, and most of my friends in real estate over there, and a lot of my friends that actually were from the fitness industry, they're over there now too. So it's like, I'm not sure if you realize, I think even Ray Charles can see it. Everybody's leaving California. So yeah, we have the
Right.
highest departure rate in California like the last 4 to 5 years. It's obvious. Newsom's a huge reason, but there's so many reasons within that too. Yeah. So Nevada is
Wow.
something they kind of aim for, and that's I don't know. I just have a lot more good connections, and I feel like I can reach out to the community in a little bit better fashion because if I just even mention I'm a Republican in California, I'm a black sheep here. So I do want
Right.
to embrace the red wave to basically make health a huge priority in the nation, and that's something I really spoke with Dr. Kiltz, is that I think it's great that we're having the carnivore community is building and just expanding and so many more people are about knowing about it. But still, the most of the population, their main focus in education and reliance is not going to be on the community on social media. It's going to be on what their doctors are telling them, or their schools are telling them, or their local governments are telling them. And I feel like I have like a moral obligation to step up and be the voice to be heard at higher levels and say, we need to get all the different agencies to get a huge focus on, like, we have a huge health problem and we're not addressing it in the correct way. We shouldn't allow, and not just that, I saved my life with farmers, by the way, too, because when I came back from Budapest, Hungary, Dr. Sophia Clemens, who I still speak with, she's actually putting me in her book, I think, as a case study. Um, I think she's one of the real people that started the carnivore community, by the way. I'm not sure if you know that. The Paleo Medicina group in Budapest, Hungary,
Hmm.
people should give them the most respect out of anybody at the carnivore. They're the real ones that actually started like the carnivore community. But she actually, what she does for all of her United States kind of patients that she kind of consults with, she'll give them a list of farms to buy the best quality meat. And one of them was like U.S. Wellness
Hmm.
Meats, and then it was like White Oak Pastures and a couple other ones, North Star Bison, a couple other ones. And I realized that when I came out, I didn't like buying meat from the grocery store anymore. Even if it was from Whole Foods or Sprouts, a little bit better quality, but I like supporting the local farmers. I'm like, so I want to support all the farms, and I got really concerned when I saw that Bill Gates and a lot of these foreign investors are buying all these farmland. I'm like, someone should be making a statement. We should provide a lot more subsidies, respect, and rights to all these hardworking American farmers. And I spoke with them on these different conventions as well. Is that yeah? I mean, it's an agricultural monopoly when you're allowing very wealthy individuals and outside investors to buy all the farmland, because it's making it almost impossible for these hardworking farmers to make a living. And these are the people that put real food on our table. So I feel that you should give them a lot more respect and focus moving forward. And since I did clinical rotations as a dietetic technician, I know that the schools are still focusing on the wrong nutrition tutorials. I mean, have you recognized how overweight a lot of the kids have become?
Oh yeah.
But the school cafeterias, they coordinate with different companies that work under the guidelines under the AND, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which has the stupidest food pyramid. It's just, and you see, even when I was doing clinical rotations in my dietetics, they're like, okay, we're gonna go to these charter schools in downtown LA. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take off a day of work and just gonna focus on my clinical rotation so I can get my credential. And I realized it was all fruits and vegetables and like crackers. I'm like, and fruit juices. I'm like, you're giving all these kids diabetes. And I saw all these kids just running up,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I just realized when I was like, I'm turning 40 this year, so I was born in '85, and I was like, when I was young, we had like one or two heavy kids in the classes, even like when I was in the private, Catholic schools. I was like, but now it's just like they're everywhere. It's just like it's actually hard to find a very like a slim person now. It's like you and I are becoming the minority now. It's very concerning when you see in the entire population becoming so unhealthy, and I think it's because the government has a huge amount of control over the influence of the population, and I think there needs to be a higher voice. I think Bobby Kennedy is making a huge change by eliminating seed oils, reducing some sugars, but there's got to be so many more changes across the board. And I think that's where I want to basically
Absolutely.
implement most of my focus.
That's awesome. I love hearing you say that because I don't really get involved in politics. But if I were to get involved in politics, it would be in this
Yes.
area because I'm a volume sports photographer. So I'm around the youth quite a bit for the last 15 years. And the health of the children, at least in Ohio, has gotten worse in this last 15 years. And I see the dietary guidelines and things like that posted in these schools that we go into, and it's literally the exact opposite of what these kids should be eating. Not only that, they have unlimited snacks available to them, freezers
Yeah.
full of ice creams that they can just go grab. It's just ridiculous. That stuff's not even food. But to add to that, when we do like dance schools or gymnastic schools, it's typically more females, and these children are getting larger and larger, and I have to take their photos, and you can tell that these girls are uncomfortable
Yes.
because of how large they are, and it's just sad. It's heartbreaking because the parents obviously don't know the truth, and the kids surely aren't going to know the truth. So somewhere, this system has got to be fixed.
Yeah. No, that's a huge concern too, and that's something I realize. So when I asked, one of my exes, she's a radiation oncologist, and I asked her about the mask and like why are so many people wearing the mask? We don't need to wear the mask. Is it really causes concern? She's actually, you know what? She kind of deals with like the mental health kind of like departments too. She's like, it's actually an insecurity issue that a lot of people they
Hmm.
are covering up their face because they don't feel comfortable with themselves and not exposing that. They feel more comfortable like covering themselves with a mask 24/7, and it just kind of like it kind of. I'm like that's a really bad habit. They need to feel more comfortable with themselves. What you can do with your own diet or your lifestyle to make you feel comfortable. I think my
Hmm.
vices is my main. Well, I don't even think the alcohol is a vice. It's only a couple weeks, but my main vice is I already told you I drive probably 1,000, 1,200 miles a week. I'm going to be on flights like every 2 to 3 weeks for the next 19 months, and I'm still to make sure I can afford my own campaign and pay off my PhD tuition. I still have to work. So I love the fact where I
Right.
could just take off 19 months and just focus on a campaign, but no, I have to pay for my own living. So I have to work more hours than I want. I'll be honest with you, I got probably about 3 or 4 hours of sleep last night. It's not the healthiest. I try to recover, and that's why I probably need more hyperbaric than the average person because my body's going through a lot more damage and needs more recovery. But yeah, I just
Hmm.
people need to really focus on what they can do to make themselves feel more comfortable with themselves. It's not only just like in a physical sense, but like in a feeling state. If you're feeling like crap, then yeah, you probably just you still have an insecurity even if you have like a good natural beauty. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that there's guys out you that are willing to step in the ring and fight for, making sure that people have better options when it comes to food choices and
Yeah,
health,
and
especially the
yeah,
youth.
and one of my big statements, it's the health is like the biggest component. I mean, the nutrition is the biggest component of the health issues, but I don't like the fact where I'm getting more and more discovery. And look at my PhD, all you do is qualitative and quantitative research, and that's all I do for like nights and weekends when I'm doing my district. I think I quoted like 92 different literature review journals where I are different case studies and part of my dissertation topic. So all I do is research, basically, right? So I'm kind of a nerd in that kind of aspect. But I'm learning that a lot of these people that are writing some of these research case studies that are promoting a lot of these pharmaceuticals, you always got to look at who's the author of it, and then you got to see if there's a conflict of interest. And, oh, they're also working one of the main doctors for Pfizer. So why do you think they're writing
Mm.
this case study to show that? Oh, here's the benefits. They won't show any of the side effects. They'll kind of just talk about just the benefits, and it'll be so like a one-sided case study. And I think that's what I kind of learned, that I can learn the advantage of like where you can really differentiate what's going to be a reliable kind of case study, like with actual like good amount of participants and there's no conflict involved. But the hugest concern is what I told Dr. Kiltz is that a lot of the medical institutions, their biggest donors are pharmaceutical companies. So the pharmaceutical companies are basically paying off and controlling the way medicine is taught to all of the new doctors for the new generation. And there's a reason, and that explains the reason why all your doctors. I don't think the doctors are evil. I don't think they're uneducated. I just think they're miseducated. They're not uninformed. They're misinformed. They're just taught
Hmm.
to treat everything with pharmacology or a procedure. They're not taught on natural health, and that's a huge concern. And when they try to ban some natural health topics like ivermectin, some other options, and saying that ozone and is quackery and that hyperbaric oxygen is only like limited to like only a certain type of conditions, that they're just trying to do whatever they can to keep more money in their pockets. And I think that's a huge
Hmm.
concern. And I think we should limit the amount of funding that is going from pharmaceutical companies to the medical institutions. Because I think we need to change the way the curriculum is run in these different medical institutions where doctors can learn on more natural health. And I think it would be I don't, like I said, I don't think the doctors are evil. I just think they're just so they do believe they're actually helping people, but they're really not. It's just because they're just taught this way, and they're taught this way for like a good like at least a few years during their program, and then even during a couple years in during the residency. They're just they believe they're helping out the public when they just need to be kind of. It's almost like that one company that's run for the keto community is what unlearn, rethink. I think it was like Tim Rice, that dietitian, that he's like a carnivore dietitian that kind of like spoke of that. It's unlearn, rethink. I think that should be like a
Hmm.
good meme and motto for a lot of the medical institutions coming by. And I know, and like a lot of people like, hey, keep politics out of the discussion. But in reality, you and I both know, Adam, that politics control almost every part or our daily aspects of our lives. It controls everything. It controls your work function. It controls your ability to live. It controls your grocery prices and controls your gas prices. And fortunately, the egg prices are finally going down, even after Biden slaughtered so many of those chickens. And then, and then, and gas prices. I think they're down. When I was just checking on Forbes this morning, right when I woke up really early, I was noticing that gas prices are like down for the third consecutive week, and it's the lowest that's been. But but I really want to make sure it's affordable for people to, even though it is cheaper to go on a carnivore diet. When you think about it, in reality, it is because you're not buying us all this
Oh
extra. You
yeah.
don't need like seasonings and all the sauces. Like just eat plain meat. Don't shop only on a specific part of the grocery store. Don't go on anywhere in the interior aisles. But yeah, but it's getting when a ribeye steak is becoming like 25.99, like for a quality grass-fed ribeye at a lot of like grocery stores here in California. That's a cause of concern. And then when the farmers are telling me that they have to sell it at a minimum price, and all these big carnivore-based farms are kind of like having to sell have to increase their prices. that's becoming a problem for the population. So I think there's needs to be changes across the board in that kind of capacity.
I couldn't agree with that more. Lower priced ribeyes, I'm always for.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm very fortunate that I have a good campaign that I'm working with. I feel
Hmm.
like because when I mentioned that I wanted to run for Congress, like, hey, an attorney that's getting his PhD and he came from the health industry and he's getting his PhD in public policy. Yeah, he's a perfect candidate. And then you have a lot of these people that kind of solicit, like, hey, we heard you want to run for Congress. Our campaign team has been doing this for 30 years, and they try to sell. It becomes like a sales tactic. But then I kind of like look and I'm like, I was like, oh, I want to feel comfortable who I'm working with. I want to make sure that I can like have some kind of like connection to them. A lot of them, when I see them like do a Skype with me, and I'm gonna see them like have like a soda in the fucking like in the background. I'm like, you're just drinking straight sugar in front of me. I was like, I just told you I'm the carnivore lawyer, and I don't. I want to change the health. That's my main focus. I'm like, I don't want to work with you. I don't give a shit if you're giving me like a great deal and all this. So I'm fortunate that I got someone that worked from Team Kennedy and Rhonda, who I think you met when we
Hmm.
went over to Austin, Texas. She's actually going to be, she's my manager. She's going to be doing most of my traveling with me. She's going to be with me in Yuma when we go next month. And she set up my whole
Nice.
website, and my website just got totally set up and approved. And we just got approved by the FAC with the separate like Brandlin for Congress political organization that's fully registered. I'm on Biopedia, and she started the donation kind of link to that too, because even though I'm putting all my life savings into my campaign because I really want to get the opportunity to serve the country in a better capacity, I want to basically expand our kind of campaign to get in not just the carnivore community. I think if you want to be the best, like the most purest, yes, I do believe carnivore is right, but in reality, it's going to make, and Dr. Kiltz kind of admitted this, that it's going to be almost kind of impossible to do the entire nation. I think we got to get the entire nation at least like going towards more of a ketogenic diet in general, to list a lot of
Hmm.
these inflammatory kind of like grains and a lot of like excess sugars, and try to go into like more natural foods, less processed foods. That's like a huge step, and I think I want to make that a big part of my community, and that's why I did tell Dr. Kiltz and Aliyah, is that how you pronounce her? That Alia, yeah,
Alia.
that I
Hmm.
wanted to run one of the largest meetups, but I'm going to be doing it in my district, which is going to be Las Vegas. So, but I want to make it
Awesome.
a very collaborative effort where not only the carnivore, it's going to be a meetup, so that's going to be the main focus. I want to make it. I told my campaign manager, I was like, I'm not sure if I can afford this, but I want to make like a Noah's Ark style of feast, like two of every animal, but like no dogs and cats and domestic and like that, nothing crazy. But I want to make like two of every animal, have like a variety where I want to buy from like 10 different farms, bulk farms, just for the community. We'll have a huge meetup in
Hmm.
connection, but I want to bring together the carnivore community, the community in general, all the fitness facilities, because that's where I came from, and that's my dear love. And most of my friends that are in Vegas, they're connecting me with gyms over there, and the functional doctors, because I still think functional medicine should be embraced. I mean, I think hyperbaric oxygen therapy should be really focused on. I mean, it's amazing on what it can treat. And I want to kind of bring this all towards a huge kind of health combination effect for everybody to kind of get together, that we're working along the same lines, that we're on the same team. We are the carnivore community, but I think we should embrace the keto community and the functional doctors and the fitness community all in one to make it a very big event. I was going to do it right when I turned 40 in June, but Alia told me that you guys are having another function, like, I forgot where it was. I think, was it Florida? Seattle,
Seattle.
there you go. Seattle, like the last weekend. So I was like, maybe in July, I want to throw a big function, and I want to promote that too. But I want to get a lot of people together.
Yeah, well, I will support you 100%, and I'm sure the team, as a Healing Humanity team, will also support that. And so, do you think that that would help to fund your campaign?
Well, all the funds for my campaign are never going to my personal pocket because the FEC, monitors everything. So the campaign,
Oh yeah,
all the
yeah, right.
donations for the campaign are going to go to campaign functions. And since my campaign functions are all on the health, that's why I told Dr. Kiltz, I want most of my campaign functions. I'm going to be speaking at Meat Stock in Tennessee too, and I
Nice.
want to do a couple other functions, but it's all going to be primarily based on health. So the
Hmm.
campaign donations will help kind of fund these kind of like all these events mainly. But yeah, that's going to be like the main focus, and I really want everybody to kind of come together. And I really do believe that the carnivore community needs a voice at higher levels, and had a discussion with, was it Hack Your Health back last year, that it was like the KetoCon or something, like in Austin, Texas last year. I actually
Hmm.
was one of the ones that proposed a question. I was like, hey, what do you think it's going to take to make some of these health changes on kind of like a national level, like where it can get the attention of the agencies?
Right.
As much as I very respect my own client, Dr. Shafee and Dr. Baker and Dr. Kiltz and Bella and a couple other people that are there, not one of them had a very satisfying answer to me. And I was like, you guys need to realize you need a voice at higher levels. So I'd be proud and honored to be the voice at higher levels for the carnivore community.
That's awesome. I love that. So, in your travels in the carnivore space, are there any books that have helped you or that you would recommend for others?
I like Baker's book. I think that's a good starting book, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So, for those that are struggling with, let's say, IBS type
Sure.
issues, what would you recommend to that person?
Definitely focus on, it's hard for a lot of people to go cold turkey and go straight carnivore, but definitely look at certain foods to eliminate to start. Okay. I mean, if you want to have, if they feel like they have to have like some fruits and vegetables, or like, really depends. You got to like, because there's safer vegetables and there's still, I mean, all vegetables are plant toxins, especially according to Dr. Kiltz. But yeah, you got to look at the ones that have the high oxalates and the high lectins, like spinach and kale are probably the ones you want. And then, especially if you're, I realize that just eliminating a very damaging insoluble fiber is something you should be focused. So a lot of people, when they start blanching their almonds, they feel like less gut pain because the almond skin is very irritating to the intestinal lining. Eliminating grains. Period. That's going to be one thing too. Just eliminating grains. If they want to have some sweet potatoes, get some boost or some kind of like they need to feel like they have some kind of glucose that would be a little bit safer. But eventually, just trying to stick with just meats in general and just going ketogenic. And then I think the best thing is sometimes just start doing some occasional fasting. But when you refeed on the fast, it is so important that you refeed on meats only. I think I'd done like, before I did that extended fast, I did like a couple day fast. I think I did like 5 or 6 couple day
Hmm.
fasts, but it was always refeeding on plants. And it was like, even if it was a green juice, it completely messed up my gut. I just screwed up that whole fast. I just wasted 3 days, and I just drank a green juice, and I feel like crap, and I'm having gut problems all day. No, just do a.
Oh my
And
goodness.
when you do your meats, in my experience, it may different every. Like I say in the clinical rotations, like N=1, everybody responds differently, right? I do not respond well to overcooked meats, and that's when the fat becomes way too rendered. I look, I if I can, like when I eat like a filet mignon, it's like a blue sear, like a very like rare on the inside, but or just do a slow roast at a low temperature. I think the high temperature cooking for a lot of meats is going to make it very difficult to digest, and you want to make sure you're absorbing your food too. So I think that's going to be, and then start looking at, besides your lifestyle, just look at your. I mean, sorry. Besides your diet, look at your lifestyle. I mean, are you getting outside at all? I mean, are you indoors all day? I mean, do you have any bad habits? Are you exposed to like these glasses? Even though my eyes are not like the best as they used to, they're blue light clocking glasses. So I think I was it Philip? Oh my God, he's from the UK. He was the one that focused on like, well, he kind of focused like Dr. Cruz, blocking the
Hmm.
dangerous blue lights. I think that's something you should be focused. But there's like do some grounding, like maybe like every morning to like start getting like your natural feel for the body's earth. There's a lot of different lifestyle changes that you probably need to make beyond your diet that people aren't realize. And then for me, I deal with a lot of stress for a living. I get threats on a weekly basis. I just get used to it, but I need to watch like an offensive comedy at least a couple times a week. It just makes me feel better. So yes, everybody should embrace some very offensive comedy. So South Park and Family Guy is my
There
favorite.
you
So
go.
those, yes, I'm actually recommending offensive comedy for people that have IBS.
I love
Yeah,
it. Steak and
yeah.
Chappelle.
Oh, perfect combination. Yes.
Awesome. So, Christopher, this has been awesome getting to chat with you. So, for those that want to reach
Sure.
out to you, how can they contact you?
Yeah, well, the website's up and running now. It's just got kind of approved. So it's chrisbrandlin.com, even though my name on the ballot's going to be Christopher Brandlin. But a lot of people, they can just find my individual email, and almost anybody in the world can find me right now. You can Google it, and if you go to my law firm website, brandlinlaw.com, you can get all my connections. And I had someone like surprise me at my office, but luckily they weren't here to kill me. They were here to like, hey, I heard you're the carnivore lawyer, and I just kind of stopped by, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, and my email is on there too, chris@brandlinlaw.com. But my campaign manager, she set up like 7 different emails for me, and a lot of phone numbers, because I guess I don't like to get my personal cell out unless I'm very comfortable with the person, even though I gave it out. But like since I get threats on a weekly basis, I don't feel comfortable giving my cell phone out for everybody. But yeah,
Understandable.
the campaign website's the main way, and then if you want to find my individual contact, you can go to my law firm website, and my contacts there too. And
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
if you ever call my office on my law firm website, I have a Nextiva system where the office number, it'll send me a notification to my cell phone wherever I'm in the world. So so I think even when I did like a small trip to Greece, like in 2019, I remember I had like an insurance adjuster call my office, and straight up bring me over in Greece. So it's kind of cool. So yeah, and I always respond to voicemails
nice.
within 30. Try to do like within 30 minutes to a couple hours. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Christopher, this has been awesome, and I truly appreciate and thank you for your
Certainly.
time. And I'm no doubt there's going to be people that find value in this video. And I'm definitely looking forward to connecting with you in
Yeah.
Yuma with your campaign manager, and we can chat there. So thank you so much for joining me. And till next time, bye for now.
Pleasure. Thank you.